Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. For today's flick pick, I decided to choose a movie that I just recently started watching over again, and it's always been one of those movies that I've just enjoyed to watch, and never really thought too much about it, and that is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Now, it's no secret that I am a Back to the Future fan, considering I'm wearing a shirt right now, and I also have my DeLorean collection, and I've talked about Back to the Future a few times in some of my videos. But this is a different take on the whole time travel spectrum. I mean, there's a lot of time travel movies out there, and books about it, and there's so many different theories about how time travel might work, and there's lots of them. This one obviously was not meant to be taken too seriously. They didn't really intend for you to really poke holes in the way the time travel works, and I'm sure you can find a lot of problems with this and a lot of paradoxes, but I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's just a fun, interesting concept for a movie. And so if you haven't seen this movie, Bill and Ted, that's Bill and that's Ted, Keanu Reeves, a young Keanu Reeves. This is 1988, actually. Yeah. But anyways, if you haven't seen the movie, it's about these two rockers that essentially their music, their rock band, is what creates world peace for the future, 700 years into the future, what solves all the world's problems. In fact, it's like right off the bat explained by Rufus, who is played by George Carlin, the late comedian, and he kind of explains that the world is perfect because of these two guys. And here's where it gets weird, because the plot is that he needs to go back in time 700 years to 1988 and stop something from happening that prevents them from making their music. So right off the bat, it's kind of weird, because how would he already exist if they failed? But maybe there was some kind of rift in time. They don't really explain it. It's fun. It's a campy movie. They're not going to spend too much time on it. But that's the plot. So he goes back in time, and what they need to do is they need to pass their history class, which they're failing miserably. So Rufus gives them a time machine, which is a phone booth. Not as cool as a DeLorean, but, whatever. We don't really see phone booths very often anymore, actually. I don't remember the last time I've seen one. Everybody has a cell phone now. But anyways, yeah, so you get this phone booth, and you can go to any time you want. And I like how there's like a phone book in there that actually tells you where you can go. That's kind of a neat concept right there. You can actually look up, if you're looking up for an event or a person or whatever. I can't imagine having to update something like that. But yeah, so the idea is that Bill and Ted would use this time machine to make sure they pass their history report. Now, there's another thing that's interesting in this movie about time travel, and what they've done is they say, no matter where you go, what time you go at it, or any time, the clock in their world, like they're in San Dimas, California, 1988, that clock is always ticking. So in other words, they always have to go back to whatever the current time would be when, since they left. So they can't just go back to the second after they made their travels, because the time would now be like a day later, or, it's different. It's something I never thought about in time travel movies, because in Back to the Future, they don't really talk about that. They kind of put him back like a minute after he leaves. They don't really say that, technically he's been gone for a week, so he would have to go back to a week after he left, which is kind of weird. And it's something I never thought about. So that was one of the things I wanted to mention about this movie, was that they did bring up a few odd pieces about time travel. They do a scene where they actually talk to themselves from themselves already leaving and then coming back. So that got a little bit weird, because then you got these, the two of them are talking to each other. But anyways, so the story revolves around them collecting historical figures. So you got, let's see, they first get Napoleon, which is what starts the whole thing. They go back in time to when Napoleon was in, I think, Austria, and when they leave, they somehow pull Napoleon in through an explosion or something, and they drag him back to 1988, and they get the idea that, well, that's something we can probably use. Maybe we should go back and collect all these historical figures. Pretty much their project is what would historical figures view their modern times as, or how would they review their modern time? So why not go back in time, bring them back with you, and let them tell you for themselves? So that's what they come up with. So then, I mean, you get Beethoven, Joan of Arc, they have Sigmund Freud, Socrates, Billy the Kid. You know, I don't know if I missed any. Did I say Abraham Lincoln? Yeah, so they pull all these characters in. Of course, they're screwing up their names left, right, and center. They call Socrates Socrates. They call Sigmund Freud Sigmund Freud. Beethoven they call Beethoven. Joan of Arc, they don't really know how to really say, they just keep calling her Miss of Arc or something like that. Yeah, but I mean, other than that, they get, who was the other one? Genghis Khan. They get Genghis Khan. So yeah, so they bring them all back and they shove them into a shopping mall, and they kind of tell them, you know, here's some slushies, sit around the table, and tell us what you think of San Dimas. We'll be back in a few hours. And so they leave them, which is kind of goofy there, because half of these people are from like 400 or 500 years ago. They've never been in anything like this. They don't even know what they're doing. And that's where things get crazy. I mean, what ultimately ends up, they all get arrested, which is another problem that they have to solve. So you got Genghis Khan who visits the sports store, puts his big club down in all his, you know, old-fashioned armor, and puts on like football equipment and takes a baseball bat, aluminum baseball bat, and starts going all wild in the store. Billy the Kid, for whatever reason, is friends with Socrates and is running around the mall shooting his gun. Beethoven goes to a music store, a studio. And it's actually quite a funny scene where he sits down at the organs, and the sales guy is like, "Are you a musician?" And Beethoven just kind of gives him that look, like, "Are you kidding?" Obviously, it's a joke, but you know, it was kind of funny. And then he tries to impress him. He tries to impress Beethoven by pushing a couple of buttons on the keyboard, and you get that, you know, that techno sound coming out of it. And Beethoven kind of gives him a big grin, like, "This is amazing." Which makes me wonder, wasn't Beethoven deaf? So, and they kind of show that throughout the movie, where he doesn't hear things that happen around him. So, I don't know, maybe he wasn't 100% deaf, but how would he know what that button was doing? I guess it was just something they thought, whatever. Maybe people won't notice. Yeah, so from that point on, I mean, you got these guys wandering around the mall, getting their impressions, and then they all get arrested because they all get into mischief. Napoleon is the only character that kind of is outside of the rest of them, who's Ted, the Keanu Reeves. Yeah, Ted, the Keanu Reeves' character, left Napoleon with his little brother, who takes him out to. I don't know if this is a real place. It isn't where I live. It's called Ziggy Pig or Ziggy Piggy or something. To me, it just looked like a Chuck E. Cheese. Maybe it does exist in the States, or it did. And so pretty much he tries to blend in with these kids, and he looks completely ridiculous. He's never had ice cream before, so they put ice cream in front of him, and he's like eating it like a pig. And that's when the people who work there, they call him a Ziggy Piggy, and they stick some button on, and they do some snorting sounds, and he's just like, what is going on? Like, where am I? And the best, I would say, part with Napoleon was when he ends up at the water slides. After the Ted's brother ditches him, of course, he wanders to the water slide area and experiences water slides for his first time ever. And the reaction he gets out of that is just priceless. So yeah, I mean, they do a pretty good job in trying to get these characters, and by characters I mean historical people, actual real people, who existed at some point in time, trying to get them into these crazy scenarios, and a lot of them end up into something a little bit familiar with what they would understand. Like, for instance, Abraham Lincoln ends up in a photo booth, and I guess it was documented that Lincoln liked to have this photo. That's why there's tons of them. And Beethoven ended up with the keyboards, and Joan of Arc ends up in some fitness demonstration. So they kind of all end up in these various activities that you would expect they would run into. So after that, they kind of, I guess they all get arrested, and Bill and Ted have to figure out how to break them out of jail, which is where another part of the interesting time travel that they talk about. And that is the idea that they could decide they're going to do something in the future by going back in time and affecting themselves now. And what I mean by that is, in order to get into the jail to break these guys out, they come up with an idea to steal Ted's father's keys, because his father's a police officer, or a lieutenant or something, and go back or in the future, after the events all take place, in the future, Ted will take the time machine back, go steal his father's keys, leave them in a spot so that it'll be waiting for them at this point in time. And of course, it works. They look underneath or behind a sign, and there's the keys. So it's one of those interesting elements of time travel. And in the movie, they express that they can't understand that it worked. They're like, that's weird that worked, but it did work. So they just, stress that they have to remember to do that, or else it won't happen. But it does happen. So that's an interesting element of time travel. Aside from the time travel and all of the other things, I mean, there's a lot of great jokes, a lot of heavy metal references. There's times where they're reciting heavy metal lyrics to some of the historical figures. There's a joke when they're in medieval time, where the king wants to put them in the Iron Maiden, and they get excited. So there's a lot of that going on in this movie, which is fun. There's a little bit of a thing with Bill's stepmother. His father obviously marries this really young, pretty blonde, which is only probably 5 years older than Bill and Ted themselves, and so there's like a lot of scenes where they're checking her out, and it's a joke about how he's checking out his own mom, but it's not his mom. I mean, it's his father's girlfriend, wife, or whatever she is. And there's a few scenes where some of the historical figures try to hit on her, and so they got a little bit of that humor going on as well. Other than that, I mean, the movie's just fun. It's about an hour and a half. It's not to be taken seriously. I know you can probably find like 1,000 things wrong with this movie as far as time travel, but they never intended it to be that. It's just supposed to be fun. And can you imagine being able to go back in time and find all these historical characters and bring them into our world? And, especially today with all of the computer technology we have, like, you would just blow them away. Anyways, let me know what you think, if you've seen the movie or what you think of the movie. I always enjoy this movie. There's a sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I'm glad they used the word bogus in there, because the movie's... I remember I saw it in theater, and I've watched it a few times, and instead of time travel, it's about death, and they actually die, and they go to heaven, and they go to hell, and I mean, it's just getting too weird from that point on. And there was a cartoon series. I don't even know if I've ever watched any of the cartoons, as far as, like, I remember them being on Saturday morning, and I don't think I was too interested in it. And there's some video games. There's Nintendo games and stuff. Again, I'm not too familiar with those. I haven't really played them. Maybe I should try them anyway. But let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of Bill and Ted and time travel. There you go. He's cool. George Carlin. Love his comedy. And yeah, let me know what you think. Anyways, talk to you later.